Hey guys, the Biden administration is using the IRS to target journalists. They sent agents from the IRS to Matt Taibbi's house the day he was set to testify on censorship before Congress. Do you think that's just a coincidence? I mean, that the IRS just shows up at Matt Taibbi's house the day he's supposed to testify before Congress? I don't think so. I don't really believe in coincidences like this. I've been around long enough to know how the government operates when it comes to journalists. And let's listen to this clip. This is Congresswoman Sylvia Garcia. She's a Democrat of Texas. She is questioning Taibbi, trying to basically find out who his source is, who gave him all this information on Twitter, and she's doing everything she can to try to get that information out of him before Congress. It's a joke. Taibbi's a professional. He knows the game. He knows what she's doing, but she's so lackadaisical. When you watch this clip, if you're watching on YouTube, she's got her hand on her cheek and she's kind of nonchalantly acting like some kind of old-fashioned detective. I don't know what's going on here, but take a listen to this.
Mr. Taibbi, I want to follow up a little bit on the ranking member's questions. When was the first time that Mr. Musk approached you about writing the Twitter files?
Again, Congresswoman, that would...
I just need a date, sir.
But I can't give it to you, unfortunately, because this is a question of sourcing, and I don't give up. I'm a journalist. I don't reveal my sources.
It's a question of chronology.
No, that's a question of sourcing.
Because you earlier said that someone had sent you through the internet some message about whether or not you would be interested in some information.
Yes, and I refer to that person as a source.
So you're not going to tell us when Musk first approached you?
Again, Congressman, you're asking me you're asking a journalist to reveal a source.
So then you consider Mr. Musk to be the direct source of all this?
No, now you're trying to get me to say that he is the source. I just can't answer your question.
Well, he isn't. If you're telling me you can't answer because it's your source, well, then that the only logical conclusion is that he is, in fact, your source.
Well, you're free to conclude that.
Well, you know what's so incredible about that is that the Democrats are putting Taibbi on the defensive when it should be completely the other way around. I mean, at this moment in time, it's pretty obvious that the Democrats, that particularly we've seen with the Department of Justice, with the FBI, let's name other agencies inside the government. We've seen it with the National Health Institute, the NIH, the National Institute of Health. We've seen it with other agencies. We've seen the weaponization of our agencies against the American people, against political candidates. We saw that certainly under the Russia hoax, which I spent years of my life trying to uncover against President Trump. And now we certainly see this against Taibbi. I've also felt the weight of the federal government bearing down on me and my personal life, and especially at the very beginning of my career and then later throughout my career. These people will stop at nothing, literally at nothing, to try to get their way, and they threaten, they destroy lives. And personally, I believe there are people in the bureaucracy that have way too much power, and I'll tell you a little bit about that when we come back from this break. Fast-growing trees. I talk about it all the time. I love fast-growing trees. I tell you, there is no better way to take care of your garden than to have like the nursery right at your fingertips. You go online, you can pick what you need. You can actually get plants that are made to grow and to thrive in your climate. How about that? It's like having a nursery, like I said, right at your fingertips. Your very own butler of sorts, right? To help you decide how you want to fix your yard. And I love that because I spend way too much time working, and sometimes I just need to get away. And for me, getting away means going out to the garden, doing some gardening, spending time with my daughter out there and my family. and just getting some sunshine. And this is what you can do too. Fast Growing Trees is not just for me, it's for you as well. And you know for certain when you order from Fast Growing Trees that you will get a 30-day Alive and Thrive guarantee. Once again, a 30-day Alive and Thrive guarantee. Join over the 1.5 million happy Fast Growing Tree customers. Go to fastgrowingtrees.com/Carter now to get 15% off your entire order. Yeah, you heard me right. 15% off your entire order. Get 15% off at fastgrowingtrees.com/Carter, fastgrowingtrees.com/Carter. Okay, I want to tell you first before I go into a little bit about what happened to me and John Solomon when we were uncovering and unraveling the Russia hoax investigation. And for those of you, so much has happened since then. For those of you who might not remember during President Trump's, the very first election, 2016, there was a concerted effort by Democrats and the Hillary Clinton campaign, and now we know this is all fact and factual, to target President Trump, to target him in such a fashion that they abused the system of government to basically go after him. And I think they went much further than what people actually realize. I believe that the FBI putting together that whole Christopher Steele dossier, the big dossier, using a foreign agent, an MI6 agent, to target the president, being paid for by Fusion GPS, basically a former Wall Street Journal reporter working as a private eye, so to speak, to build dossiers on political candidates, used Christopher Steele, gathered all that information. Who paid for it? Oh, lo and behold, Hillary Clinton. Hillary Clinton. She paid for it. She paid for the lies. She paid for lies. Not for truth, for lies. Lies which, by the way, were published in mainstream media news outlets, leaked by senior level officials in the United States government, that being John Brennan, I believe, was very much involved in that. And he had actually briefed President Trump on the dossier with Comey and Clapper in January 2017. When President Trump was getting ready to take over as president in early January, they went to Trump Tower and they briefed him on this dossier that was then leaked and by my sources up on Capitol Hill. And I wrote about this quite frequently. It was James Clapper who leaked it to CNN, and BuzzFeed News then felt okay to publish the entire dossier and target a sitting U.S. president. And now we know that it was all lies. It was just complete and utter fabrication and lies. And it actually had Russian disinformation in there, real Russian disinformation. And the reason why I bring this up and the reason why this is so important is because what we are seeing today, as we uncovered all of these stories, the rats on the sinking ship started to pile up on top of one another. The wolves came out of their lair, right? They are freaking out, folks. People in Washington, D.C. cannot contain themselves because they are being exposed. That is what you are seeing. Why are they going after Matt Taibbi, a very well-respected journalist, someone who everybody liked? Everyone. All of the media loved him. He was writing for Rolling Stone. He was writing, sometimes, and he's definitely more open about it. He seems very much more of a liberal, left-leaning person. Although I know him, I've met him once. I don't know him well, but I've met him. And I thought he was fantastic. I think he's an excellent journalist. And now they were targeting him. Why? Because Matt Taibbi, through his sources, along with Barry Weiss and others, have been able to thread together the government's collusion with social media. And what do I mean about this? What am I saying here? The government was literally going after journalists through their ability to reach the masses like me on Twitter or on Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, whatever it may be, minimizing the voices they did not want you to hear and amplifying those voices of those they did want you to hear. They were getting directly involved in elections, in narrations and narratives of what was actually going on. The government officials that were involved in this, which was the FBI went and spoke to Facebook, Mark Zuckerberg. We know that now. We also know that they went to people at Twitter. And it was especially during the time when Miranda Devine with the New York Post and others were getting ready to publish all of the stories on Hunter Biden prior to the election because of the Biden laptop, which was left sitting at a Delaware computer shop. It was a cry for help from Joe Biden's son, in my opinion. Hunter Biden just wants the whole world to know how screwed that whole family is. And he is too. And instead of allowing the media, because we're the United States of America, to do our job, and instead of trying to direct the media, because we're the United States of America and we have a First Amendment, the United States government got directly involved in an election, shut down voices of people that would be amplified, people that would get the message out to the American public so that you would know that the Biden family was taking money from China, that the Biden family was taking money from Ukraine, that the Bidens had all of these issues, ongoing issues, and that this laptop from hell, as Miranda Devine's book so well states it, was real. Instead, they went and they said, hey, guess what, guys? This is Russian disinformation. You probably don't want to allow anyone to post any stories about this. You probably want to stop this all before the election. So who's getting involved in an election? I want you to take a listen to this, and then I'm going to tell you how the government does this. Because the government, I believe, when the IRS went to Matt Taibbi's home while he was giving testimony and went looking for him, I believe that was pretty much saying we're going to make your life a living hell from now on. That this is not just some kind of coincidence. This was a very real, very well thought out and methodical action by the government. They do it all the time to shut the mouths of people out there who have information and truth and want to get it out to the public. And I want you to take a listen to this, and then I'm going to come back. I'm going to tell you what John Solomon and I had to go through and what I had to go through in particular during the Russiagate scandal, as well as when I first started writing investigative pieces at the Daily Bulletin. Take a listen.
Focus of this fast-growing network, as Mike noted, is making lists of people whose opinions, beliefs, associations, or sympathies are deemed misinformation, disinformation, or malinformation. That last term is just a euphemism for true but inconvenient. Undeniably, the making of such lists is a form of digital McCarthyism. Ordinary Americans are not just being reported to Twitter for de-amplification or deplatforming, but to firms like PayPal, digital advertisers like Xandr, and crowdfunding sites like GoFundMe. These companies can and do refuse service to law-abiding people and businesses whose only crime is falling afoul of a distant, faceless, unaccountable, algorithmic judge.
He's absolutely right. Everything, even when I produce my podcast, you rely on advertisers because you can't do everything for free. I would love to, but this takes up time in your day. If you're a writer and you're trying to turn stories into like Rolling Stone, or you're a freelance writer, as Matt Taibbi was, and working, can send his stories to other various news publications, he has to be able to do that and to make a living at it. He has to be able to spend his days investigating, collecting information, doing the job to inform the American public. But if all of a sudden somebody in the government or somebody with power reaches out to one of these powerful platforms and says, hey, you know what? This person's causing me a lot of problems. I think we need to, reduce their amplification, which means that they have algorithms to reduce your voice. I've seen that even on my platform. We tried to figure it out. We were like, what is going on here? Like, people would say, I didn't even think you were around anymore. They didn't even see me on Twitter. They couldn't even see me on any of these platforms for a long time. They'd have to literally go to my page. They'd have to go to my page, and then they would see it, but they wouldn't see me outside of that. And then there were other issues. Like when I first started reporting, and I don't think I ever realized it as much as I do now, but I remember when I was first covering stories at the Daily Bulletin, and I was writing a lot of stories on United States citizenship and immigration services. And I've actually stayed in touch with these whistleblowers since then. And it was these stories were so important. And I felt like, as much as we wrote about him, there wasn't, it didn't affect the change that we really wanted to. Mainly because we were up against these massive bureaucracies. But we got the truth out there. And that truth was, much like you see at the border right now, and much like you see happening in the United States, people were being allowed into our country without being fully vetted. They weren't being vetted at all. And these whistleblowers had that information, and I was able to expose some of that, not all of that, because I didn't have all the fact, but I exposed a lot of it. I had documentation to prove. I had whistleblowers to prove it. I had also documents that never made public, but were very damaging to the government. But because of the way they threatened the whistleblowers, it became very difficult to be able to tell some parts of those stories. But they also threatened me. I remember being asked to fly all the way to Washington, D.C. to meet officials at USCIS. And I was a young journalist, and I walked into the building and I felt like I had been targeted. I thought I was going to have an interview with an official about my story, and I had lawyers surrounding me, people telling me that if I wanted to, save my career as a journalist, I wouldn't go down that road. They made it very uncomfortable for me. I was also a young journalist making maybe at that time, maybe $14 an hour, and I was so scared. I was so frustrated. And even during that same time frame, and this was back in the early 2000s, I remember I was heading to the border, and I was also covering a story on Border Patrol agents. I don't know if you guys all remember this. Some of you do, some of you might not. You can look it up. Ignacio Ramos, Nacho Ramos, and Jose Compean. The stories were Ramos and Compean, the two Border Patrol agents that were eventually acquitted after 2 years of my work and assistance from Congress for their role in firing on a drug dealer at the U.S.-Mexico border. They were sentenced to 12 and 14 years, I believe, in prison. And after 2 years, their sentences were commuted by President Bush. And then under President Trump, they were pardoned, which is phenomenal. But while I was down at the border and I was working on this story, I get a call. I have a document that I wanted to actually publish, and I wanted to first visit the people that were on that document list. And this was from United States Citizenship and Immigration Services, and it appeared to be people that had been adjudicated into the United States without any background checks. And the person that adjudicated them, it appeared that they had taken money, that they had taken some money to adjudicate them from being just like a work visa all the way to U.S. citizen within a second. That's almost impossible. These people were from all over the world. I thought maybe, wow, did I stumble on a witness protection program list? I actually thought that, and I contacted the FBI. And I contacted the FBI in Kansas City, where the processing center was, USCIS processing center. And I said, look, I have a document. It may be a witness protection program document. I don't know what I have right here, but it's starting to make me very nervous. I see this movement, and I talked to one FBI agent who was like, well, basically blew me off, and then later called me back and said, well, go ahead and write about it because we don't know anything about it. Like everybody was either hands off, we don't know anything about it, or we don't know what you have. I end up getting a call. And mind you, I'm working on this other story and I have this one that I'm working on the side. And the person tells me, if you plan on visiting any people on that list, I certainly would hate for anything to happen to you. I would hate to see your face on the cover of the El Paso Times. And I said, whoa, wait a minute. Are you threatening me? Are you threatening my life? And they said, no, I'm just telling you that maybe some of those people on that list, they might be dangerous people. And I would hate to see your face on the cover of the El Paso Times. And I couldn't even believe what I was hearing. And I was also a very young journalist. By the way, I still have that document. I wasn't able to figure out, and I'm still working on it. Believe it or not, I'm like a bulldog. I don't let anything go. And I know that the people that I've worked with in the past, those whistleblowers whose lives, by the way, were destroyed by the United States government, by people within the US government, because they also worked for the US government. These were the good guys, right? These are the people like the whistleblowers who are talking to Jim Jordan now, who want the truth out, who want to inform the American public about what's going on. These are the same kind of whistleblowers who said, hey, look, what's going on with President Trump, that's a bunch of lies. And let me explain to you why. And this is the rabbit hole that you need to start going down. These are good people. These are people who believe in the Constitution, like Matt Taibbi, people who believe in our Bill of Rights, people who want to expose the malfeasance and lies and corruption, people like Elon Musk who want to disinfect this illness by putting light on it. These are the people that really do believe that you are capable of making your own decisions once you know the truth. That is what our founding fathers believe in. That's what I believe in. That's why I'm a journalist. That's why I continue to do the work that I do today, even as a columnist and an investigative columnist. That is what I believe. The other side, they don't believe that. They don't believe you're smart enough to make your own decisions. They don't believe that you are capable of doing what you need to do to make this nation a better place. And that's frightening, and that's McCarthyism. I'm going to be right back. First, I want to tell you about Allegiance Gold. I've talked about Allegiance Gold, and I really believe in this organization. Why? Because it allows us to protect our money, right? Gold and silver allow you to protect what you've worked so hard for. We just can't even trust the banking system anymore. And because reputation is very important to me, I will only recommend Allegiance Gold. And right now, you have a current offer of $5,000. Listen to this, a free silver on a qualifying purchase when you tell them that Sara sent you. And believe me, you want to do this. You want to do this. We've seen what our governments can do. We see what the government does, what they've done here in the United States, as far as banks trying to push people out of their own banking system from keeping their money in there. We saw that with Donald Trump Jr. We've seen it with Lieutenant General Michael Flynn. We've seen it with others. We saw what happened in Canada with the truckers when people tried to make donations to the truckers, or the truckers themselves would have their bank account seized because they weren't doing what the government said. So the banks just let them in there, let them do whatever they want. Folks, we have to be smarter than that. We have to be smarter than that. And right now, Allegiance Gold, which, by the way, has the highest ratings in the industry. Listen to this, 5 stars with TrustLink. They're AAA rated with the Business Consumer Alliance, and they have an A+ from the Better Business Bureau. You're just not going to get better than that. Right now, they're giving you $5,000 of free silver on a qualifying purchase when you tell them that Sara sent you. So don't wait. Call or click today. 877-702-7272. That's 877-702-SARA, SARA, or go to protectwithsara.com. We can't control the Biden administration, but we can prepare. 877-702-7272. That's 877-702-SARA or protectwithsara.com. If you love fearless journalism, subscribe to my channel here on YouTube and on Rumble. I love being able to talk to you one-on-one. I want to hear what you're thinking. I want to deliver the stories that mean the most to you and ones that you and I can discover together. So go ahead, sign up. Don't wait, sign up. Go to YouTube, Rumble, and thank you for being a part of my show. So part of what we were discussing is, the government being so involved right now in everything, in every aspect of our life. This wasn't the way America was founded. It wasn't the way we were. I don't believe our founding fathers perceived it to be. I think we live in a world now where information and technology is rapidly exceeding our ability to control it, right? So when you have a government that has such an expansive network or intelligence apparatus, whether that just be even law enforcement like the FBI or the CIA overseas or the NSA, we have now gone way beyond where maybe we needed to take a step back and say, how is this going to affect all our lives? And the reason why I bring this up is because just like how Matt Taibbi is facing like the weaponization of, this government against him, which is what I believe, especially with that visit from the IRS agent. And what I've seen happen to John Solomon and I remember John, so many different instances where, he and I both would suspect that there were people like watching us or following us or were our phone conversations being listened to. And we know that that's happened because we know now that people that we spoke with were being listened to, that their phone calls were being monitored, that their text messages were being monitored. It's a pretty frightening time. And these expansive capabilities that allow our government to spy on our adversaries should not be used to spy on American citizens. The United States government should not be able to spy on journalists, should not be able to negate, right? Push out what they don't want you to hear, and then amplify those voices of propaganda that they do want you to hear. It's so wrong, and it goes against everything that we as a republic believe in. And frankly, it terrifies me. It terrifies me. Just look back in history at governments that were able to do this. They weaponized the systems against their people. The old USSR, Russia, even today, Pakistan, Afghanistan, and now look, are we any better? Look at what we've done to our country. Look at what we're doing to our people. Look at the fights up on Capitol Hill. If you all are not paying attention, you should be. We are being watched. It's like Big Brother. It's like 1984. We can't control what is happening in our country. We're unable to, I guess, speak the truth. But slowly but surely, Americans are standing up. Slowly but surely, people are saying, whoa, wait a minute. I mean, they tried to make Matt Taibbi look to be like some so-called journalist. What? Barry Weiss. I remember when they did that even to me. And John Solomon, there were people that were saying, wow, you guys better be right or they're going to destroy you. And I said, I am telling the truth. We are telling the truth. The FBI has been weaponized. We've seen what's happened in our government. And I'm not going to stop telling the truth because somebody is threatening me. Otherwise, why would I do what I do? Our job is to be a watchdog for the American people. Our job is to be the voice when somebody else can't because they're either too busy or they don't know. Our job is to fight together to protect our nation from outside adversaries. But how difficult is it now when we are struggling to protect our nation from itself, from the officials that we put in office, the ones that we entrust to protect us, to protect our children, to protect our future, when they are so wrapped up in power and they're so desperate to keep their power that they're willing to do anything and everything to destroy the fabric of the nation that we love, that our forefathers have died for. You know, when they have done everything to protect themselves, but not the people of this country or our nation. That's pretty terrifying. You know, it has not been easy. It has been a tough road for many, I think for many of us. COVID, the lies of COVID, the lies on Capitol Hill, the difficulty in getting the truth out. You know, thank God for people like Elon Musk and others and Matt Taibbi who are saying, you know what, no more. I want to stand up to this and I'm going to tell the truth. But it has been a tough road because we're up against a machine who has its gears running and its people in place and has worked diligently to target those that want to expose it. At the top of this podcast, I talked about rats on a sinking ship. I still don't know necessarily if the ship is sinking. I know that the rats are being exposed, but I know it's up to each and every one of us to continue to push for that exposure, to continue to support independent journalists like Matt Taibbi and others who are telling the truth, to continue to do what is right. Because if we don't, I think we're at an apex, folks. I think if we don't, we have so much to lose. I mean, we will lose this nation if we don't fight for it, if we don't stand up for it the right way. Thank you so much for being a part of the show. I want you to follow me on Truth, and that is at Sara Carter Official on Truth, at Sara Carter Official on Twitter, at Sara Carter DC, and on Instagram at SCarterDC. God bless you. God bless our great nation, and God bless the great state of Texas.